In this video, we're gonna show you exactly how to sell on Amazon step by step. But this isn't just a video of us talking through the process. Instead, you're gonna see over our shoulders as we show you all the steps we've used to launch our own products here at Jungle Scout. This past year, these products have combined for over $250,000 in sales. So I guarantee this will be the most complete guide to selling on Amazon that you'll find here on YouTube. Now, we're gonna be sharing a lot of information today, probably more than you can take in one sitting. So make sure to bookmark this page and subscribe to the channel so that you can refer back to it again and again. To make this even easier for you, each section is timestamped in the description below. So as you come back to the video, you can jump straight into the section you need. Now, let's make some money.
To sell on Amazon, you simply need a product to sell, a Seller Central account, and a means of getting your product to the customer. Whether you already have a product to sell, or you just want to get into the game but don't know what to sell yet, there's 4 business models to consider. The first business model is called wholesale. This is the practice of purchasing branded products in bulk from another manufacturer, supplier, or distributor, and then reselling them on Amazon. The second business model is called retail arbitrage. This is the practice of buying discounted products either in-store or online and then reselling them at a higher price on Amazon. The third business model is called dropshipping. This is when a seller takes orders on behalf of a manufacturer, distributor, or supplier. Then when a customer buys a product, the seller uses their supplier to fulfill those sales. So if you're interested in any of these 3 business models, check out our other videos here on YouTube to learn more.
Now, in this video, we're going to cover the 4th and most common business model, called private label. This is where you take a generic product and place your own brand on it, then sell it using FBA or fulfilled by Amazon. FBA simply means you get your product shipped into Amazon's warehouses and they take care of all the fulfillment. That way, you've got a very scalable business selling physical products, which you can do from home or really anywhere in the world. A few questions we usually get asked is, how much money do you need? So for private label, you'll typically need a minimum of $2,000 to $5,000, roughly speaking. If you don't have this amount, then maybe consider starting out with retail arbitrage or wholesaling to raise the initial capital. The other question we often get, how long does it take to get this business up and running? Well, if you're just starting out, it can typically take around 3 to 4 months from the day you first start until you receive that first sale, assuming you're doing this on the side of a full-time job or other study commitments. Of course, this timeline would be much shorter if you have more time available. Now, let's get right into step number 1.
Step number 1, find a product to sell. Trying to find the right product to sell on Amazon can often feel like navigating through the jungle without a proper tour guide. That's why I'm here to help guide you throughout this process of finding a winning product to sell on Amazon. Now, no more monkeying around, let's get right into it. But first, a couple of pointers. Number 1, make sure your product decisions are data-driven and not just what you think is gonna sell. Remember, the product you choose is the foundation of your business, so you want to spend extra time in this stage. Next is to use a product research tool. You can do product research on your own, but tools make it much easier. Throughout this section, I'm going to be using the Jungle Scout product database as well as the Chrome extension to make sure our decisions are based on data, not just opinions. Because we'll be using them, here's a quick overview of how they work. With the product database, all of the products on Amazon are loaded into this database here, and we can search and sort through all of them using advanced filters. So first up, you select the marketplace that you want to sell in. And here we just recommend selling in whatever marketplace you're comfortable with, or if you don't have any preference, the US is a really good one because it's the biggest marketplace. Then you choose what categories that you want to sell in, the product tier, whether that's regular or oversized, the seller type, whether it's fulfilled by Amazon, fulfilled by a merchant, or just sold by Amazon themselves. And then you input your filters. So for example, the minimum and maximum price, sales, reviews, rating, and so on. Then click search to see results based off of those filters. Now, if you want to get rid of all the products that are COVID related, you can choose to exclude keywords here like mask or even COVID. Alternatively, you can narrow down your list to only find certain products by choosing to include keywords. With the Chrome extension, here you'll see real-time sales data based off of an Amazon search results page. So you just go to Amazon.com, search for a potential product idea, and then the page will just populate with lots of great information such as monthly and daily sales, revenue, estimated net profit, and more. That's just a real quick overview of these two tools. So now let's talk about how to find the best products to sell. So how do you decide what's a good product? Well, first come up with a list of 10 to 15 product ideas based on the 6 criteria of a good product. These are demand, competition, profitability, improvement potential, legal limitations, and ease to sell. So let's now dive into criteria number 1, which is high demand. This is the key component of any good product idea. You need to figure out if people actually want this product and if they're already coming to Amazon to purchase it. I know I've said it before, but you want to find something that you know will sell well on Amazon based on data, not what people in your life say they want or what you think. So, how do you determine demand? Well, using the product database, we can select the sales filter. And here I'd recommend looking for products that sell at least 300 units per month, which is about 10 sales per day and is a good number to shoot for. Criteria number 2 is low competition. Now, while you want your product to have high demand, at the same time, you want to make sure that there's low competition so that you've got a good chance of being able to sell that product. So how do you go about determining competition? A really great way to do this is by looking at the number of reviews the competition has. If the competition has a low amount of reviews, but still sells well, then that means it's going to be easier for a new product like yours to come in and compete against them. In the product database, you can set minimum and maximum values for reviews. So for instance, I'd set the maximum number of reviews to about 100. Criteria number 3, high profitability. As a general rule of thumb, you want to sell a product between $20 to $70 to allow for healthy profit margins. Below $20, the profit margins get very slim, and above $70, people are less likely to make an impulse buy from a brand that they're not familiar with. In the product database, you can set minimum and maximum values for price points. So for instance, I'd set the minimum price to $20 and the maximum price to $70. To help determine potential profitability, consider the 2 main costs that affect your profit margin. These are your landed costs and then your Amazon fees. Landed costs are mostly made up of the cost to make your product and then the cost to ship it into Amazon. You can also include other costs such as any prep or inspection fees and maybe any customs duties, which will kind of vary depending on where you're ordering from and where you're shipping to. But for the most part, the bulk of your landed cost will be the product cost and the shipping cost. Then the other main cost that I mentioned is Amazon fees. There are a few different fees that you should know about. So the first one is called the referral fee, which is what Amazon charges for bringing customers to your listing and selling it. This is usually up to about 15% of your selling price, which is actually a great deal considering how much Amazon is doing. Secondly, if you're using FBA, you have a fulfillment fee that varies depending on the weight and dimensions of your product and what country you're selling in. Other additional fees that you may need to consider are long-term storage fees, which you get charged only if you have inventory that stays unsold in Amazon's warehouses for more than a year. You've also got your monthly Seller Central fee for using Amazon, which on a professional subscription is about $40 per month. We'll talk more about setting up your account later on in this video. So with both your landed costs and Amazon fees in mind, the best way to gauge profitability is to calculate your ROI, which stands for return on investment. The goal here is to get at least 100% ROI, which basically means that for every dollar you spend, you get $2 back. Here's an important tip to remember. For every product that you're evaluating, think, can I source and ship this to Amazon for substantially less than it's selling for? To help you calculate that, consider the rule of thirds. 1/3 goes towards Amazon fees, 1/3 goes towards your landed cost, and then 1/3 goes into your pocket. Also, hey, if you're already getting value from this video, let us know by crushing the like button down below. All right, so to help simplify this process, I recommend using Jungle Scout's FBA profit calculator to find out exactly what Amazon's fees would be for certain products. So for example, let's say I was looking to sell this monkey toy for $21. Amazon's total fee is about $7, which is 1/3 of the selling price. Considering the rule of thirds, I should be aiming to have my landed costs for this product to be under $7, which again includes the costs to source and ship the product into Amazon. Doing that would give me a profit of $7 or so, which again is roughly a third and gets me my 100% ROI. Now, if the product would have cost much more than this, then that's where I might move on to another product, as the profit margin on this one would be starting to get a little bit low. So now let's move on to product criteria number 4, improvement potential. On Amazon, it's ideal to find a product that has the ability to be improved. That way, if we can improve upon a product, it will increase our chances of standing out from the competition. So to determine improvement potential, we'll come back to the product database after we just entered in our sales, reviews, and price filters. This time though, we're going to be utilizing the star rating filter. This is the rating that every product on Amazon has on a scale of 1 to 5. So for this, we'll set the maximum star rating to 3, as this is going to help us find products that have a fairly poor rating. By clicking search, this will show us listings that are still selling well, despite the fact that people have rated them poorly. Then, once we've found an interesting product, we can read through the existing 1, 2, and 3-star reviews to discover what people are saying that they don't like about the product. This could be anything from the color, the material, size, usability, functionality, or really anything else. You can then take these problems and tell your supplier to fix them so that you can then bring an improved version of the product to market. Another simple way to improve a product is to bundle one product with something else. So if you look at a listing, you'll see a frequently bought with section, and if you see the same items being frequently bought together on multiple listings, then it could be a good idea to bundle them together. This means that you're offering additional value to customers who only need to buy your product to get the 2 things that they want, plus it helps you stand out from the competition, and oftentimes is more profitable because now you can sell 2 items at a higher price. Criteria number 5, no legal and liability issues. But first up, a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, but I did want to touch on this because we get these questions all the time. The most important questions to ask yourself when it comes to selling a potential product is, are there any existing patents on this product? You can't sell something that has a patent on it. Patent basically just means that someone else owns the rights to the design or the way that something functions. Well, the only sure way to know is to hire a lawyer, but some quick steps that you can take on your own include doing a Google search for your product idea plus patent. You can also check listings on Amazon for that product and see if they mention anything regarding a patent. Oftentimes, if a product does have a patent, you'll even see it on the packaging. You can also check if there are many other people selling that exact same type of product. If so, then this is usually a good sign, as patent holders typically enforce their patent, stopping others from selling the same thing. But again, these are just some quick things that you can do that don't necessarily guarantee there isn't a patent on a product. The best thing to do is to hire a lawyer.
Oh yeah.
But I just wanted to give you some quick and dirty ways to do some initial checks. The next thing to consider is potential liabilities. So could someone easily get hurt from using your product? Some examples might be things that go in or on your body, or flammable, hazardous products, etc. Next is to consider trademarks. You can search the trademark database on USPTO or a site like Trademarkia in order to see whether a trademark exists for the product that you're looking to sell. You also need to consider whether Amazon has any restrictions on selling your type of product. Here are some of the prohibited items that you can't sell on Amazon. If you're ever unsure whether you can sell the product that you're looking at, here's a handy tip. Once you have a Seller Central account, which don't worry, we'll cover how to get to in a little bit, you can actually go and create a listing, type in the name of your product, and it will actually tell you whether Amazon has any restrictions around this item. Crikey, on to criteria number 6, ease to sell. This includes sourcing, importing, selling, the whole 9 yards. So especially for your first product, you want something that isn't going to give you many headaches. You want a simple product that's easy for a factory to make or make changes to. Try not to sell a product with too many moving parts or one that can easily be broken. You also want smaller, lighter products because they're easier to ship, they're cheaper, plus they cost less in Amazon fees once they arrive. And again, on Amazon, simple is better. So ask yourself, is it breakable? Is it likely to be returned? Is it hard to use? How long will it last? Do you think it will get a lot of negative reviews? Is it really big or bulky? Keep all these questions in mind, and trust me, the more product research that you do, the more these questions will just naturally become part of your thought process. Now that we know what makes a good product, the fun part is using the product database to begin analyzing all these potential product ideas. So to recap, you just set up all of the primary filters that will help isolate just the products that have at least 300 sales per month, under 100 reviews, are priced between $20 and $70, and have a maximum 3-star rating. Clicking search, this will then give you the individual listings that match this criteria. And now the next step would be to select a product and begin analyzing the entire market of that product. For instance, I can take this product here and perform a search for it on Amazon. What we're looking at now are the demand and competition levels of this category as a whole. Specifically, we're just going to focus on the top 10 listings on page 1. The reason why we focus on the first 10 listings is because the majority of customers generally don't go much further down the page when they're looking for a product. That's why we want to ensure that there's not too much competition here that prevents us from getting into these top spots. However, we also want to make sure that there's enough demand across these top spots so that even if we take just a tiny share of those sales, we can still make good money. Now, with reviews, we want to make sure that the top 10 products have an average of 500 reviews or less, and ideally 3 to 5 of them have less than 50 reviews. When it comes to demand, you want to see the top 10 products have a total of around 3,000 monthly sales, which averages out to 300 sales per listing. Once you've confirmed that, you then want to make sure that the sales are reasonably distributed amongst those top 10 listings. If 1 or 2 listings are getting the majority of the sales, then it may be best to pass on this product idea because customers are clearly only buying from those couple of top listings. So that means that even if your product were to rank in the top 10, it's going to be an uphill battle trying to convince shoppers to buy your product over theirs. All right, if you're still with me and you're enjoying this video so far, then let us know by hitting the like button down below. Now, I know the process of finding winning products can be quite challenging. So if you take anything from this section, let it be this. First, use a research tool like the product database to help you filter through and discover products that meet the following 6 criteria: high demand, low competition, high profitability, improvement potential, no legal issues, and ease to sell. Next, for each product idea that you find, use the profit calculator to estimate the 2 main costs that affect profitability. These are your landed costs and Amazon fees. Also, make sure to consider the rule of thirds. 1/3 goes to Amazon fees, 1/3 goes to your landed cost, and then 1/3 goes to you. Next, keep in mind that the product you choose to sell doesn't have to meet every single criteria that I've outlined, and oftentimes products won't. It might check one box, but then not be as strong in another. This is where you need to use your best judgment and find the best balance between the 6 product criteria. Lastly, don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Ultimately choose something and move on to the next step. And hey, if you're still stuck, check out this video up in the cards and watch me actually go through this process as part of our $1 Million Case Study series.
Okay, so you found a few product ideas. Next, you need to find suppliers who can manufacture those products. That way, you can begin collecting quotes to help you compare the true cost differences and profitability. Now, contrary to popular belief, you don't actually need to fly out to China to meet suppliers in person. You can complete this whole process within the comfort of your own home. Okay, so one of the resources that I'm going to reference during this section is Alibaba, which essentially is just a marketplace like Amazon, but for finding suppliers. You go on there, search for any product idea that you're researching, and then you'll find suppliers from all over the world who can make that product. In this section, I'll also be referencing the Jungle Scout supplier database. The purpose of this tool is to easily find or verify suppliers. The way we do this is by collecting free information on all the shipments that are imported into the United States and the suppliers that are doing them. With it, you can see exactly how many shipments a supplier has sent into the US, which gives you an idea of their size and authenticity, especially if they've done a lot of shipments. And if the supplier hasn't got much on record, then they may not be as credible or as experienced as you might like. Here, you can search for suppliers by typing in the product name, the company name if you happen to know a company in the US that sells that product, or you can even search by entering the name of the supplier themselves. This one is actually really useful if you've already found a supplier on Alibaba, for instance, and you want to verify the information they tell you. They might say they worked with the US for the past 10 years, but in the supplier database, you can see just how many shipments they've actually imported. Finally, you can also search for suppliers using a similar product's ASIN. This is by far my favorite way of finding suppliers because you can copy your competitor's ASIN on Amazon and then paste it into the supplier database to find their exact supplier. Now, this doesn't work 100% of the time, but it's a great search to try because if your competitor's product is getting great reviews on Amazon, then you can assume that their supplier makes high quality products. All right, now let's find some suppliers. As a quick overview, here's a simple 4-step process to sourcing a product. Step number 1, for each product idea you have, create a short list of 5 to 10 suppliers based on the 4 qualities that I'll be sharing with you in just a moment. Step 2, send them an initial contact email using specific guidelines that we'll be going through. Step 3, vet your supplier's responses to your email and begin narrowing down your top 3. And step 4, order samples from those top 3 suppliers and evaluate the quality of the products you receive. On to step number 1, create a list of at least 5 to 10 suppliers that you want to contact. To do this, go on Alibaba and search for your product idea. Then look for suppliers who have a good price and have been selling for at least a few years. You can usually find this information right under the prices, and on the supplier database, you can actually find this by opening up the shipment history graph and checking when their first shipment was. Step 2, send an initial contact email. Now that you've made a list of potential suppliers, you'll want to contact them. This will give you the necessary information about your product and will also let you judge their level of communication. To do this, you'll first need to track down each supplier's contact information. On the supplier database, you can actually just click this button to search for it on Google. The other option is to contact them through Alibaba's messaging system, but fair warning here, this can get a little messy. Here are some actionable tips on what to include in your initial email. First, introduce yourself, then lay out your product requirements. Keep in mind, it's always best to do this in a bulleted list. You'll want to include what your product is called and add as much detail as you can regarding the product specifications. You should also include a picture of your product with any potential modifications clearly marked. A tip here is that you can use a tool called Snagit to easily create these. Now, some potential questions you should ask is how much a sample will cost and what the lead time is to receive one. What is the best price per unit that you can offer? What payment terms do you offer? What is the minimum order quantity? What is the product lead time? What type of packaging do you offer and does your price include packaging? One last thing, make sure you send this email out to your entire list of suppliers so that you can judge their responses equally. And yes, we made a free template of this email for you to download, so go ahead and check it out with the link down in the description. And hey, while you're down there, if you're getting any value from this video, we'd really appreciate it if you smash the like button. Okay, now some things to note regarding the responses you're going to get. The quoted price you'll receive will differ depending on the number of units you're ordering and whether the shipping items will be FOB, which is where the supplier is responsible for getting your product to the port and then you pay for everything after that. Or the second option is called EXW. This is where the supplier is not responsible for getting your goods to the port and you must pay and arrange to get it shipped from the supplier's warehouse all the way into Amazon. EXW is typically cheaper, but FOB is more common. In both cases, you want to work with a freight forwarding company that takes the headache out of handling all the logistics for you, especially if you chose EXW. And don't worry, we have a full section later on in this video dedicated to finding and hiring freight forwarders. Okay, on to step 3. This is where you begin vetting your suppliers to narrow down your list to just the top 3. As your responses start coming in, you can track all this information inside the Jungle Scout supplier tracker. This is an incredibly helpful way to begin narrowing down your top 3 suppliers, as this tool allows you to input quotes, sample cost, shipping cost, and any other details you receive from suppliers. You can even take notes throughout the entire process, including how easy communication was. Where this notes section really comes in handy is to keep score of all your favorite suppliers. There's 4 qualities of a good supplier that we always look for, so keep these 4 in mind to help you narrow down your list. Quality 1 is to have a high quality product. On Amazon, customers mostly buy based on reviews, so a low quality product will ultimately lead to bad reviews. A good way to check this is to get multiple samples from different suppliers in order to compare the quality. Also, keep an eye on what regions each supplier is creating products for. The Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Africa typically have different quality standards than Europe or North America. A great way to check this is to enter the supplier name into the supplier database. Once you do that, you should be able to find the companies they sell to in the US, and then you can track down a listing of that product on Amazon. From here, you can see the reviews that customers give this product, which is ultimately the best way of judging the quality. But also, don't get too confused here. It's okay if the supplier is selling to someone else who's already listing the exact same product on Amazon. If you do choose to go with them, then you'll be getting your own branding and packaging to help separate your product from theirs. Quality number 2 is experience. Look for a factory that is producing your type of product for a long time. Again, you can see the supplier's import history in the supplier database, and you can also check their Alibaba profile to see the amount of years that they've been in business. For this step, it's important to know that suppliers will usually be in one of 2 categories, either a manufacturer or a trading company. A trading company is more of a middleman that purchases products from a variety of suppliers and then resells them. Generally, you want to work directly with the supplier to get the best prices and easily discuss any changes that you might want done. It's harder to do that with a trading company because, again, they're more of a middleman, and because of this, their prices are typically a bit higher as they're out to make a profit as well. However, the advantage of a trading company is that you can often get smaller minimum order quantities. A manufacturer, on the other hand, may require you to order 500 to 1,000 pieces at a minimum. On Alibaba, you'll typically see on the company profile page whether they're a manufacturer or a trading company. But another good way to check is to see what types of products they're selling. If you see lots of different products that would typically be made using different materials or different machinery, then they're probably a trading company. That's because, in contrast, manufacturers typically only sell products that are made in a similar nature. On to quality number 3, which is communication. This is an important one because you want to make sure that the supplier you end up working with is easy to communicate with. A way to judge this is to see how clearly they answer all your questions when you initially contact them. Once you start sending emails, this will be pretty easy to see. Some suppliers will completely ignore a lot of your questions, and others will answer all of them, or often it's somewhere in between. You want to work with someone that can effectively speak your native language and is also responsive and thorough enough to answer all your questions. Remember, you're the one interviewing them, not the other way around. Quality number 4, price. Look for a factory that's going to give you a fair price. To find out what a fair price actually is, once you start contacting a bunch of suppliers, you'll soon get a picture of the average market price. Now on to step number 4. This is when you order and evaluate samples. A few notes regarding this. It's typical for you to pay anywhere from $50 to $150 for just a single sample. The best way to pay is with a wire transfer, although PayPal is often quite common for ordering samples as well. The other payment method to be familiar with is using trade assurance through the Alibaba platform. This can be good to use as it provides a little more protection for your payments that you can set. In this case, paying through a wire transfer is the main option you would most likely use, and this is also the same method you're going to use to place your first order on Alibaba. Now, when you finally receive samples, make sure you take the time to compare them. What's the quality of the sample like? Use it in the way that the customer would and see how it holds up. Also, how quickly did the sample arrive? Was the communication easy? Based on all this information, for each product idea you ordered a sample for, it's now time to pick your favorite supplier for each one. One thing I note here is that a supplier will rarely be perfect in every single area. Usually, you just have to weigh up the pros and cons and go with a supplier that ticks the most boxes. For new sellers, I know firsthand just how intimidating this part of the process can be. So here are a few important takeaways to remember. First, use Alibaba and the supplier database to find suppliers that make your particular style of product. Then, send those suppliers an initial contact email like the template we provided earlier. Next, narrow down your list to the top 3 suppliers that meet each of the 4 qualities of a good supplier. Those are having a high quality product, experience producing your type of product, they communicate effectively, and they give you a fair price. Lastly, order samples from a few different suppliers to test and compare the quality of each one. After this process, you'll ultimately land on one supplier per product idea that you want to do business with. Okay, now if you would learn much better from watching somebody actually go through this entire process, check out this video up in the cards to see how we recently found our supplier during the $1 million case study. Okay, now this is where it gets really fun. You just discovered a few product ideas, then you found some suppliers who can make those types of products for you. You then narrow down your list to just one supplier per product idea. Now this next step is to compare all your notes and determine which one of those product ideas makes the most sense for you to sell. The best way I can tell you how to make this decision is to compare each product's level of demand, competition, and profitability. You can easily do this inside the Jungle Scout product tracker, as this tool was built solely for this purpose. Now, what this does is for each product you add, it tracks the daily sales along with other metrics over time so that you can be confident that your product has enough demand before you invest money into it. For example, if my product idea was, say, a birthday sign, I'd go ahead and run a search for birthday signs on Amazon and begin adding at least the top 10 listings on this page. By tracking these product sales over the next 2 or 3 weeks, now I'd have a better idea of how many units these products typically sell per day. This then becomes how much you could expect to make if your product were to eventually rank in the top 10 of search results. To begin comparing your ideas down to just one, we'll go back to the 6 main criteria of a good product that Lenny introduced earlier. To compare each product's level of demand, you want to look at the number of average sales to see which product has the highest demand. To compare each product's competition levels, look at the number of reviews and the average star rating. Lastly, to compare each product's profitability, look at the average price, fees, and net profit. Also, it's very important to make sure you consider the quotes you got from suppliers earlier. This is the main factor that will ultimately help you determine which one of these products will be the most profitable. Then, after you review everything we just went through, you'll hopefully land on the product that makes the most sense for you to sell. After this, you can then move on to the next step in the process, which is setting up your business and Seller Central account. And hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, let us know by booping that like button down below.
Okay, now before you set up your business and your Seller Central account, there's one thing you need to do first. Celebrate! That's right, congratulations on picking the product that you're going to sell. This is a huge step in your journey to becoming an Amazon seller, and I'd say that calls for some well-deserved gluten-free cake.
Oh yeah.
Cheers! But I will say, looking at this cake here, it feels like there's something very important missing.
Oh yeah.
Like a name. So let's start this section off by talking about what makes a good brand name. If you're creating a product following the steps that we're outlining here, you really are creating a brand for yourself. So I'd recommend choosing a brand name that's simple and generic and can be applied to a broad range of products. If building a business around a particular market is important to you, then you can go with something more specific, like Eva's Spatula Store or Eva's Dog Products. But if you're starting this business just to find products that sell and you don't mind what category they're in, then I'd recommend keeping your brand name more broad so that you can sell a variety of products underneath it. When it comes to setting your business up, you'll most likely begin by starting a separate legal entity. The most common legal entity for this type of business is called an LLC. Now, this isn't a requirement, but there are 3 main advantages to having one. First, it's not particularly expensive, and it doesn't affect your taxes too much, which is great. Second, an LLC creates separation between yourself and your business. This will help shield you from any potential liabilities if you were to ever get sued. It will also protect your personal assets. The third benefit is that you'll be able to set up a separate business bank account and a credit card, which means more credit card reward points for you. So if you're on the fence on whether or not to set up an LLC, you should keep in mind that some freight forwarders require you to have an LLC in order to work with them. And as far as a name for your LLC goes, this doesn't really matter, just because Amazon isn't going to display this to your customers anywhere. As far as how to set up your LLC, this is really up to you, but I recommend heading over to LegalZoom because their website is easy to follow and it lays all of the steps out. The next important part of your business that you'll need to do is set up your Amazon Seller Central account. This is the headquarters for Amazon and running your Amazon business, so I'll take you through how to set up an account in the US marketplace. And if you're planning to sell outside of the US, the steps are very similar. First, to sign up for your account, head over to services.amazon.com. Here you'll get to choose what marketplace you want to sell in. My recommendation is if you live in the US, then you want to sell in the US marketplace. But if you live outside of the US in a country that has their own marketplace, then sell in that one if it seems easier to you. For instance, it might be easier to sell in your own country because you understand your country's tax regulations and so on. Otherwise, you can always sell in the US marketplace as well. If you're selling from outside of the US, check out our other YouTube videos regarding the extra challenges that you might face and how to overcome them. We'll put that video in the cards for you up here. Next, you have two options, an individual or a professional seller central account. If you're serious about your Amazon business, then I recommend a professional account. But here's a quick description of both. Individual is a free account that Amazon will charge you 99 cents per sale, and not all categories will be available to you. You also won't have access to certain features such as advertising. A professional account costs $40 a month, and you're free to sell in any category, aside from some gated categories. And you'll be able to access the Amazon advertising console. You can transition to a professional account at any time, so feel free to start with an individual account if you want, and then switch over once you've selected the product you want and you're in the process of having it manufactured. You'll then have to sign in with an Amazon account or create a new one. I'd recommend setting up a new Amazon account for this and keep your personal shopping separate. Amazon will send you a verification code in order to confirm your new account. Then in the account setup, you first start by entering your country of business or your business location. Next up is your business type. You can sign up as an individual or as a business if you like in one setup. If you have a US LLC as a single member, then you can just select individual instead of a business, and it's treated very similarly. If you're selling it as an individual, you simply input your name, select agree, and continue. If you selected the individual, then you'll need to enter information about your country of citizenship, country of birth, and date of birth. Or if you've chosen a business, then you'll need to enter your company registration number. Following that, you need to enter your business address, regardless of whether you're an individual or a business. Keep in mind that you do need to be able to receive mail at this address, as Amazon may send a postcard there for verification. We have heard about people having trouble getting their address verified, so what we've learned works best is to use your own physical address regardless, even if you live outside of the US, as Amazon will reject your application if they can't verify via the mail postcard or some utility bill. At this point, you'll need to enter your phone number and Amazon will send you a verification code. Once you've verified that, click Next. Now you need to enter a credit card to charge your subscription to. If you have an LLC, consider signing up for a business credit card. If you're selling from outside the US, you can use a service such as Payoneer or TransferWise to get yourself a card. The next step is to create a store name. This can be whatever you want. It is separate from your brand name and it is not as important. You can always change it in the future. Do you have UPCs for all of your products? I would say yes, because you will need these for any product that you list. And don't worry, we'll talk more about that in the next section. Now, are you the manufacturer or brand owner? In our case, yes, we're a private labeling, which means that we are the brand owner and the manufacturer. If you've already gotten a trademark for your brand, then you can say yes here, as this is the beginning of the brand registry process. But if you're just starting out, you likely won't have this, and you can click no. You can always apply for brand registry at a later point. On this final screen, double check that your information is correct and upload any necessary documents for Amazon to verify you. This might change depending on what country or information you've entered. Then click Submit, and your account will be reviewed by Amazon and hopefully set up soon. And that's it. You now have full access to Amazon Seller Central. A quick note here is if you don't get verified the first time, I just encourage you to try again. Next, we're going to talk briefly about Amazon Brand Registry. This is a program that Amazon rolled out a few years ago that allows brand owners to have a greater listing control, additional functionality, and additional protection over all products within the registered brand. To sign up, you must have a registered trademark, which is typically the hardest part. It usually takes a long time to get, often 6 to 8 months. You can speed up this process by taking advantage of something called the Amazon IP Accelerator, where if you use Amazon's pre-vetted law firms, Amazon will allow you to enroll in brand registry once you've applied for the trademark instead of waiting until the final registration. Amazon Brand Registry isn't a requirement to start selling on Amazon, but it does have some great benefits. Some of these benefits include being able to report listings that are violating your intellectual property, utilizing A+ content, which allows you to add more images and text on your listings and create a brand story, and upload videos that will display under your secondary images. A+ content features are known to increase your conversions by 5% or more. Another great benefit of brand registry is the ability to create an attractive Amazon storefront. Again, this isn't necessary when you first start out, and I always suggest people get started first and then apply for brand registry as soon as it makes sense to do so. Now, setting up your business is by far one of the most taxing parts of becoming a seller. So here are a few important takeaways to remember. First, choose a brand name that's simple and generic so it can be applied to a broad range of products. Then, set up a separate legal entity by creating an LLC for your business. I recommend heading over to LegalZoom because they can do that part for you. Next, sign up for an Amazon Seller Central account in the marketplace that you want to sell in. Lastly, consider the pros and cons of an individual versus professional selling account. But if you're serious about your business, I highly recommend choosing a professional account as it gives you access to the brand registry features that we just talked about. So before we go much further, we should talk about packaging and Amazon barcodes. For starters, in order to even create a listing inside your Seller Central account, Amazon requires that you have a UPC barcode. This is the barcode that you will essentially see on all packaging. The best place to find and purchase these barcodes is directly through GS1, which is the agency that manages this. They can also technically be purchased from third-party sellers at a cheaper rate. However, this is against Amazon's terms of service, so I'd advise using GS1 codes. Amazon requires you to have one UPC barcode per product and per product variation that you're selling. To purchase your barcodes, go to gs1.org. On the right-hand side, click on Get a GS1 barcode, then the website will walk you through the process of purchasing your barcodes. Once you've purchased your UPC barcode, you can create your product packaging. This is a very important step as you need to meet certain requirements, so let me walk you through the two main requirements for your product packaging. The first one is you must include the country of origin. This is wherever your product was manufactured. The second requirement is an FNSKU barcode. This is the code that Amazon requires for all products being sent into their warehouses. You'll get this code in Seller Central after purchasing your UPC barcode. We will show you later in this video how to create your listing, but really quick, here's how you can locate your FNSKU code. Once your listing is created, go to Manage Inventory tab, and then click on Print down at the bottom. Once you have this code, copy it and send it to your supplier so they can print it directly on your product packaging. People often get confused between the FNSKU barcode and the UPC barcode and which one they need to print on their packaging. So to clarify, you only need the UPC barcode in order to create your listing. Once you've created your listing, you only need the FNSKU barcode, and you place it on the product packaging itself. You no longer need the UPC barcode at this point. I really hope that helps clear things up for you. And if it did, we would really appreciate if you hit the like button below. Okay, let's move on to designing and determining your packaging style. A good place to start here is by asking your factory what they typically do for this type of product. From here, you can decide if this is what you want to do or if you want to improve upon the basic packaging style. This decision will be based on what you think your customer expects from your type of product. For instance, if it's a gift, you might want to offer some fancier packaging. And on the flip side, if it's just a disposable item, customers may not care how it's packaged. So your packaging could be anything from a fancy bag to just a plain old cardboard box. You may also decide to include a few other things in your product packaging that I consider nice to have, but they're not mandatory. Perhaps you want to include something visually appealing, such as a business card or a product insert that includes your contact information. You can use these to ask customers for their email addresses, to leave a review, cross-sell other products in your product catalog, and so on. If you do decide to include these, remember you are not allowed to ask for only happy customers to write reviews. Now, if you're wanting to design and create your own packaging, some good options here include using a tool such as Canva to sketch up your design ideas, or you can hire someone on a site such as Fiverr or Upwork to design it for you. You'll then need to send these designs to your supplier in what's known as a vector format. I know the challenges involved in choosing packaging styles and purchasing the necessary barcodes, so here are a few important takeaways to remember. First, repurchase the required UPC barcodes from gs1.org. Then use it to create a rough draft of your listing on Amazon. Next, make sure your packaging includes both the country of origin and the FNSKU barcode. Lastly, determine your packaging style by asking your supplier what options there are and the prices involved. If you want to design it yourself, you can always use a free tool like Canva or hire someone on Fiverr or Upwork to help you.
Now on to step number 6, which is placing your first order with your supplier. While this is a really exciting step for new sellers, this can also be pretty intimidating. First up, when it comes to negotiating a price with your supplier, here are a few tips to consider. However, do keep in mind this process will often take place before you decide on your final supplier. So you'll usually already have your prices when you make that decision earlier. Now on to tip number 1. It's best if you have more than one supplier that you're willing to work with, because that way you can push harder on the price without worrying about losing them. Usually this will come from the top 3 suppliers list that you created earlier. Tip number 2, figure out what the maximum price is that you'd be willing to pay and be willing to walk away from if you're not satisfied with the price they give you. Tip number 3, ask how many units you would need to order to get the lowest price that they can possibly offer. If you can't get the price you want right now, but you know that you can get that price later in the future when you place larger orders, then you should be okay with a slightly higher price to begin with. Okay, once you've settled on a price, the next step is to create a purchase order and to send it to your supplier. To make this easier for you, we actually have a sample purchase order agreement and template that you can fill out to generate this order. You can find this in the supplier tracker by clicking the Purchase Orders tab, where you can then begin creating your order. Now, while you may not be able to legally enforce this, it's a great way to make very clear to the supplier what you're ordering. The typical payment terms that you can expect are 30% upfront and then 70% once your order ships. Another common payment term that some suppliers use is 50% upfront and then the other 50% after your order ships. Especially when placing your first order with a new supplier, one thing you might want to do is to run a product inspection. This will help ensure the quality of your product and protect you from receiving unsellable inventory. Now, while a lot of people choose to do an inspection, this is technically an optional step. You just have to balance the risk versus reward, but in my opinion, I think it's worth it to do it anyway. So how it works is you pay a third-party company. 2 popular ones here are Akima and VTrust, and they'll send out a representative to your supplier. They can check for specific things that you ask them to look for, but they'll also have their own list of standard checks to go through. Now, even if you got a great sample from your supplier, you still want to ensure that your first order lives up to that same standard. And while inspections are relatively cheap, if you don't have enough money to pay for one, you can also run what we call a poor man's inspection. This is where you just ask your supplier to send you pictures throughout the process or video chat with you so you can see the products yourself. For example, you may notice that your supplier is using the wrong label, or maybe something else you notice is off. But doing this will allow you to bring up this mistake so that it can get fixed before it's too late. Additionally, you can even include this in your agreement within the purchase order. Something we've done in the past here is added a section that states the shipment must pass the inspection, and if it doesn't, then the supplier needs to fix the problem and then pay for a new inspection until it passes. This is another great way to hold your supplier accountable for creating high-quality products. Okay, now you want to take everything you just learned in this section and go ahead and get the ball rolling by placing your first order. Just make sure to keep these important takeaways in mind when you go about this process. First, try to negotiate the price with your supplier and figure out what the maximum is that you'd be willing to pay and be willing to walk away from if you're not satisfied. Next, create a purchase order with the template we provide in the supplier tracker and make sure to include order agreements that keep your supplier accountable. Lastly, I'd highly recommend running an inspection to ensure the quality of your product. But if you're on a tighter budget, you can always ask your supplier to send you pictures throughout the process or video chat so you can see the products yourself. Ahoy mateys! We need all hands on deck for this section because now it's time to ship your product from the supplier's warehouse all the way into Amazon's fulfillment centers. There's 2 main ways you can ship your product, either by air or by sea. When it comes to sea shipping, this is the most popular option as it's going to be much cheaper. It will cost you roughly $1 per kilo, but this cost does vary as it deals more with the volume than it does the weight. With sea shipping, you can usually expect it to take about a month or so for your product to arrive into Amazon. Although more recently, it's been a bit longer with delays due to COVID and especially during the Q4 time period. With air shipping, this option is much more expensive. It will cost you around $5 per kilo, but will usually only take about 5 to 10 days to arrive into Amazon. If your shipment is very small and lightweight, then air shipping might make a lot of sense for you. If you're in a rush to get your product into Amazon, then this will certainly be your best option. Now, if you want to run a tight ship, I strongly recommend hiring a freight forwarder. This is someone who arranges the entire shipping process for you. They're knowledgeable about everything from shipping terms, customs, packaging, labeling, and so on. They essentially become a trusted partner for your business. In a lot of ways, without them, this process would be almost impossible for the average person. So, how do you go about finding a freight forwarder? While there are a number of places you can look, I'd recommend Freightos.com. Here, you can compare quotes from multiple freight forwarders and determine which one works best for you. How this works is you first select your origin, which in this case will be your supplier's factory. Then, choose the country your supplier is located in. Lastly, type in their address. The next step is to enter your destination, which if you're using Amazon FBA, then you'll choose the fulfillment center option. Again, enter the country and the address of an Amazon fulfillment center. Now, a quick note here. Technically, you don't yet know the address of the fulfillment center you'll be sending your products to. So here, I'd recommend choosing any fulfillment center within your country just to get you past this step. Then, once you choose a freight forwarder to work with, before paying, make sure to let them know that you'll be updating the address once you have it, which I'll be showing you how to find that in just a moment. So for now, check out this helpful website to find the addresses of all of Amazon's fulfillment centers across the world. Just pick one close to you and enter in the address. Now, the third step here is to enter in your load, or what you're shipping. Here, you have a couple of options regarding the container you'll be choosing. If you have enough units to fill the entire container, you'll want to select full container load, also known as FCL. However, if you don't have enough units to fill an entire container, you'll want to select less than container load, also known as LCL. In this case, your product will be shipped with other people's products in the same container. To help you figure out which one of these options you should choose, reach out to your supplier and they should be able to answer this for you. Next, you want to fill out the rest of this information, such as package type, pallet type, and dimensions, which again, all this information will be provided by asking your supplier. Lastly, you want to enter in the value of your goods. This will be the price you pay for your products, which can be found on the invoice you receive from your supplier. Then choose whether your products are ready right now or if they'll be ready in a few weeks. Once you fill out all that information, you'll be able to compare and sort through all the listed freight forwarders. When selecting a freight forwarder, you want to keep in mind the price, how well they communicate, whether they've imported your type of product before, and if they're knowledgeable in all of Amazon's requirements. Once you select a freight forwarder, it's time to set sail and get your product into Amazon. To do that, let me walk you through setting up a shipping plan inside Seller Central. This is a step that you will have to do on your own, even if you hired a freight forwarder to help you navigate the 7 Cs. This is also where you'll find the address of the exact FBA warehouse that you'll be sending your products to. First, go to Inventory, and then select Manage FBA Shipments. At the top, click Send to Amazon. You'll start by entering your ship from address, and typically this is the address of your freight forwarder. Next, select your marketplace destination from the drop-down menu here. If you're only selling in the United States, you'll just have this one option here. Otherwise, if you're selling outside of the United States, make sure you select the country that you want to send your products to. Next, this is where you choose the products that you're going to send into Amazon. First, find your product, then click the Packaging Details drop-down menu. Now, decide whether you're sending individual or case-packed products. Individual means you have different SKUs or products inside of one box, whereas case-packed means you only have one product inside the box. If you selected case-packed, you'll go ahead and enter a template name, the number of units per box, and the box dimensions and weight. But don't worry, all this information can be provided by asking your supplier. Lastly, check this drop-down menu to see if your type of product has any specific prep requirements. Make sure you carefully look through this list, and if your product falls under one of these categories, you'll then select who is doing the prep for your shipment. All Amazon cares about is whether it's Amazon or someone else. We recommend having your supplier or freight forwarder do the prep for you rather than Amazon, as they will end up charging you more. If you choose Amazon to do the prep, you'll notice they will also be responsible for labeling your units for an additional 30 cents per unit. And this is the price that has actually gone up about 10 cents per unit since our last How to Sell on Amazon video. In fact, if you watched our last video and you're watching this one, first off, bottoms up and thank you for your support. Second, we'd really appreciate if you like this video so that it can spread to more people here on YouTube. There's nothing actually in this. Now, if there's no prep needed, then you can simply select if it will be you or Amazon that labels your units. Going back, if you selected individual units, you will then click the pencil icon to edit the details. Again, this is where you select if your product needs any specific prep and who is going to label the units. From here, click Save. Next, if you selected individual units, you'll need to tell Amazon how many units you're sending in. Enter your quantity and then click Ready to Pack. However, if you selected case packed, you'll then need to tell Amazon how many boxes you're sending in. Enter your quantity and then click Ready to Send. Next, whether you selected individual or case packed units, you'll need to scroll down to the bottom and click Print All SKU Labels. This will open a box that allows you to download a PDF file of your labels so that you can print them out. If you choose to do the prep yourself, you will then send this PDF file to your supplier and ask them to attach the labels to your product's packaging. Now, one note regarding this next step, if you selected case-packed units, you'll simply click Confirm and Continue. This will skip you past an additional step needed for individual units. So we'll come right back to the section in just a moment. Now, if you selected individual units, you will see the option to click Pack Individual Units. From here, you need to tell Amazon how many boxes you're sending in. If everything fits into one box, select the first option. Click Confirm, then type in the dimensions and weight of your box. Then click Confirm Packaging Information, followed by Confirm and Continue. But if your shipment requires multiple boxes, you'll want to select the second option. Click Confirm, then type in the number of boxes you'll be sending in. The default method here is to enter this information through a web form, which in my opinion is the easiest way to complete this step. However, you can also choose to enter this information through an Excel file or even tell Amazon to manually process your boxes, which they can do, but for an additional 15 cents per unit. Going back to the web form, enter the number of boxes you'll be sending in. Then click Open Web Form. Here is where you select how many units will be inside each box. Again, your supplier will be able to provide all this information for you. The last step here is to enter the weight and dimensions of each box. Once done, click Confirm Packaging Information. On to step number 2. Now, like I mentioned in the previous step, if you selected case-packed units, this will actually be the same workflow you'll see regardless of if you choose individual or case-packed units. To start, select your ship date, which is the date you expect to hand your inventory to the carrier. This date helps Amazon prepare to receive your inventory, but don't worry too much about getting this exactly right because you can always come back and change this date after you confirm shipping. Next, decide if you're shipping SPD or LTL. SPD means small parcel delivery. Essentially, SPD consists of units packed into individual boxes, and each box is individually labeled for delivery. Normally, these are the smaller shipments that are sent via DHL, UPS, FedEx, or other local postal services. On the other hand, LTL deliveries consist of multiple shipping boxes transported together on pallets. Typically, shipments that weigh less than 150 pounds are cheaper sent by SPD, and for anything heavier than that, it's best to use LTL. Next, Amazon will now tell you what fulfillment centers you'll be sending your products to. Below, you'll see a shipping price for selecting Amazon's partnered carrier, which in this case is UPS. We recommend choosing this option as Amazon offers discounted shipping rates, but if you wish, you can also select a non-Amazon partnered carrier from this drop-down menu. Just be aware, if you do choose another carrier, you will have to arrange and pay for the shipping yourself. After making your selection, go ahead and click Accept Charges and Confirm Shipping. The last step here is to print the FBA box labels. Simply click Print, which will open up a PDF file. You'll want to save this file and send it to whoever is prepping your boxes, whether it's your supplier or freight forwarder. Ask them to correctly attach these labels to your boxes before shipping them into Amazon. Then, once your supplier or freight forwarder has attached your labels, you'll come back to this page and click Mark All as Shipped. And that's it. Once you complete this final step, you can go back to the Shipping Queue tab to track the status of your shipment. The options you'll see here are either working, if you're still working on it, in transit, at fulfillment center, and closed. Shipping your product can be quite complex. So here are a few important takeaways to remember. First, use a freight forwarder. I can't emphasize this enough. They're experts at this and will hold your hand throughout this entire process. Next, aim for sea shipping whenever possible. You may choose air shipping to begin with if you want to get your products into Amazon as quickly as possible. But for most people, I'd aim to ship your products by sea to save on cost. Next, create a shipping plan inside Seller Central and make sure your supplier and freight forwarder preps your products for Amazon. For that to happen, you must send in both your FNSKU barcode and shipping labels to your supplier and freight forwarder so that they can put it on your product's packaging and boxes. And finally, don't be stressed. I know this sounds like a lot, but just take it one step at a time. I promise the more you do this, the easier it will become. And hey, if you're still stuck, you can always head over to our channel and watch the shipping episode of the $1 Million Case Study.
Next up, we're going to talk about building your listing on Amazon. This is how customers find and purchase your product, so this step is incredibly important. As we just mentioned, it takes some time to get your product shipped into Amazon, so creating your listing is one of the few things you can actually do during this time. I'll be taking you through a 6-step process for building a successful listing. First, you're going to research keywords to include in your listing copy. Then you'll create your listing by adding your product to Amazon. From there, you can draft your listing's title, bullet points, and product description. After that, you can begin taking your high-quality pictures of your product for your secondary images. So, on to step number 1, keyword research. Keywords are the terms that customers type into the Amazon search bar to find your product, making this an essential step and definitely not something you should skip over. If you do this well one time, you'll have a list of keywords to use for your listing as well as later for your PPC advertising campaigns. First, I'll start by telling you my top 2 tips for coming up with your keyword list. Number 1, using Keyword Scout, search for whatever keyword you think is most relevant for your product. Then hit search. For example, if I'm selling an artificial plant, I would search for this in Keyword Scout. The search results will populate with all the keywords that people use when searching for products like yours. So you will see search terms that you haven't even considered. Keyword Scout will automatically sort the results by 30-day search volume, so you'll see the most popular keywords on Amazon. Here, you'll learn the actual search terms that customers are searching for, which aren't always obvious. Now you can save all these keywords to a keyword list. For my second tip, head over to Amazon, search for your top competitors' listings, and copy over one of their ASINs. An ASIN is a unique identifier that Amazon gives each product. You can usually find this in the URL, and it always starts with a B0. If you have the Jungle Scout extension, you can find it right here, or you can scroll down to the page and find it in the product information section. Paste this into Keyword Scout, and now you'll see all of the keywords that your competitors are ranking for. Add these to your keyword list. You can do this for as many competitors as you'd like, but I'd suggest doing it for at least 2 to 3 of them. You'll now have a comprehensive list of keywords to use for your listing and back-end search terms. Step 2, create your listing in Seller Central. To start, click on Catalog, Add Products. If you're selling FBA, click on I'm adding a product not sold by Amazon. The next step is to select the category that you want to list your product in. Scroll down to Search and search for your type of product. You'll want to choose a category that's most appropriate for your product. On this next page, under Product ID, is where you'll want to put your UPC barcode. Under Product Name, you will put in the title you created. Under Brand Name, you'll put your brand name. If you're selling FBA, the manufacturer will be the same as your brand, or really whatever you want it to be, as you are the manufacturer. This next page is where you'll set up any variations that you might have, whether that be size, color, etc. The seller SKU is something that you can just make up on your own, but I'd recommend putting thought into these labels as you'll reference this quite a lot in the future, so you should make it something that's easy to identify. Under the fulfillment channel, select FBA. Now it's time to upload your images, but keep in mind you can change these at any point. In order to put in your additional information, such as your bullet points, description, etc., you'll have to select Advanced View. You can do this now, or you can come back here at a later point. You'll definitely want to fill in your bullet points, description, dimensions, and weight. Depending on the category you're selling in, you may have some additional fields to fill in. If you're ever unsure about what a particular field is, just hover over the question mark in Amazon. It'll give you additional information. Under Keywords, you'll want to fill out the search terms and subject matter fields if they're available. These are your back-end search terms and aren't visible to customers. It's a little hard to know exactly how Amazon uses these for ranking, but I recommend filling them out anyways. Keep in mind the keywords you add into your backend should be keywords that you weren't able to fit into the customer-facing title, bullets, and description. Once you click Save Changes, your listing will now show up in Seller Central. You can go back and edit the listing details at any time. Keep in mind that your listing won't be active or public on Amazon.com until you've sent inventory in. So it's okay if you haven't completely finished your listing, and if you want to go back and work on it, as long as it's finalized before you actually start selling. We do have a separate video on this topic if you'd like to learn more. Step 3, draft your listing title. I recommend doing this in Listing Builder, one of the tools inside of Jungle Scout. This will help you organize your keywords and help assure that you don't use any duplicate keywords, and it will also help you incorporate all of the top performing keywords in your listing. Listing Builder can also automatically pull information from Amazon and then push the changes back to Amazon if you have your Seller Central account linked with your Jungle Scout account. For your title, it's important that it both flows and is legible, but you also want to include as many top relevant keywords as you can. So the strategy here is to take these high search volume keywords and weave as many in as possible while making it also read well to the customer. Something like this, for example. It's a good rule of thumb for your title as well as your other sections of your listing to use as many characters as you're allowed for this category. You can find your character limits by hovering over the question mark next to the product name field in Seller Central. Step 4, draft your listing's bullet points. While your title is all about the keywords, the focus of your bullet points should be to inform customers about the top features of your product, but you should also include the rest of your highly searched keywords here. Again, use as many characters as you're allowed to. Different categories have different character limits, anywhere from 80 to 500 characters, including spaces. So make sure you find out exactly what that is for your product before you start writing. There's nothing worse than writing some awesome 500 character bullet points and finding out you have to trim it down to 250 characters. If you're not sure what to write about, you can always check your competitors' listings to get some inspiration. You should pay attention to their bullet points, the questions section, and the reviews section, and a few additional tips for your bullet points. Put the main keywords at the beginning of each bullet in all caps and offer a money-back guarantee. Amazon always gives this to their customers anyways, so you may as well use it to your advantage. If there are any customer complaints on your competitors' listings that your product overcomes, then you should also include this in your listing. Remember, you can always go back and edit your listing copy, so don't stress too much. Step 5, draft your listing's description. Like the other components of your listing, this can be drafted within Listing Builder. This section is less likely to be read by your customers, but you can use it to include additional keywords, talk about your brand, or anything else that you want your customers to know. If you're brand registered, you can actually replace the description section with what is known as A+ content. This allows you to add additional images and text to your listing, highlighting the things that make your product and your brand superior to competitors. You can find this in Seller Central under Advertising, then A+ Content Manager. When you're designing your content, make sure to view how it's going to look on a mobile device, as A+ content actually appears before your bullet points on mobile devices. Amazon has different templates you can utilize to build your A+ content layout, but if you don't have design experience, I recommend hiring someone to help. On to step number 6, which is to take images of your product for your listing. Images are incredibly important for your listing, so you need to put a lot of effort into this step. You essentially have two options. Either you take images yourself, or you can hire a professional. But my word of advice is put the iPhone away, use a professional camera. These are some of Amazon's requirements. Your main image needs to be against a plain white background with no props included, or watermarks or logos. 85% of the image has to be taken up by your product. It must only show the product that is for sale and can only contain text that is part of the product. If you'd like your image to be zoomable, then it'll need to be at least 1000 by 500 pixels. But I normally recommend using 2000 by 2000 pixels as a rule of thumb because zoomable images tend to help conversion. Once a customer is on your listing, your goal changes a little bit. You now want to convert them into buying. And your pictures can play a huge role in that since your customer isn't able to physically experience your product before they purchase. You want your pictures to clear up any confusion they might have, as well as allow them to picture how life would be better if they buy your product. One way of doing this is including lifestyle images. These are images that show your product in use, giving the customer a way to put themselves in the model's shoes. These images should hit on their emotions. They are a little bit harder to get, but they're definitely worthwhile. Additional visual elements that you can add into your listing are infographics. This is design work that's on your photos that highlights the main benefits of your product. You can create a competitive matrix, show the dimensions of your product, and add arrows that highlight the main benefits or any other design elements that highlight what sets your product apart. You're usually able to upload 7 to 9 pictures, and I'd recommend adding as many as you're allowed. Keep in mind that many customers will be browsing on mobile devices, so keep your design simple and clear. If you're brand registered, you can also include videos in the photo section. Now, I hope you're still enjoying this video. If you are, let us know by hitting the like button down below. Building your listing can be both fun and intimidating at the same time, so here are a few important takeaways to remember. Number 1, research your keywords to include in your listing. Then create your listing by adding your product to Amazon. From there, you can add top keywords from your list to your listing's title, bullet points, and product description. You may also consider replacing your product description with A+ content. This is the perfect place to highlight what makes your product stand out. Lastly, capture and upload high-quality images of your product by either taking them yourself or hiring a professional.
All right, well, I hope you're ready for takeoff, because now it's time to launch your product on Amazon. When your product first hits the market, it's mission critical that you get off to a hot start right away and capture sales. That's because it's believed Amazon gives your product a bit of a boost during its first month, so you'll want to make sure you take advantage of that. Now, in order to skyrocket your sales out of this world, you'll need to first get your product ranked within Amazon search results. While Amazon hasn't revealed exactly how they determine search ranking, there are 3 main factors that play a big part. Let's walk through them. The first and most important factor is keeping your product consistently in stock. When your product goes out of stock, Houston, you have a problem. Not only will you be suppressed within search results, but you'll also be penalized by losing valuable keyword ranking that can take you months to rebuild. The second factor that affects search ranking is relevance, which is impacted by both visible and invisible elements. Visible elements refer to the keywords customers see throughout your listing's title, bullet points, and product description. Invisible elements refer to the back-end product information and search terms that are only seen by aliens, or Amazon's algorithm. So when you're creating your listing, make sure you fill out as much information on the back end as you possibly can so that the algorithm has enough data to figure out what your product is. And the third factor that affects search ranking is customer success. In other words, this is the performance data that Amazon uses to evaluate how shoppers are interacting with your product. The main metrics involved in this is your click-through rate, number of add to carts, purchases, and customer reviews. Okay, so you need sales, got it. But how many sales do you need each day in order to rank higher? Well, this number will vary depending on what keyword you're trying to rank for. You can easily find this information inside Keyword Scout, which will tell you how many daily sales you need to be getting to begin ranking on page 1 for that keyword. Let's now talk about conversion rate and how to increase it. One of the most important factors that affects your conversion rate is your price point. So how should you be pricing your product when you first launch? One thing you can do is to check to see what your closest competitors are charging. To do this, type in your main keyword on Amazon and review the prices of the top 10 or so listings, then make sure your offer is competitive enough to convince shoppers to click on your listing. For example, if the top 10 products average price is anywhere from $22 to $25, then consider pricing your product at $19 to $21. Although something to watch out for is to not price your product so low that you begin losing money or forcing your competitors to lower their prices and create what's called a race to the bottom, where no one makes money. Whatever your target price is, keep in mind that it's okay to price a little bit lower during this launch period. That's because in the first few weeks, you're really not worried about making a huge profit. Instead, your focus should be on improving your keyword rankings and getting reviews. So by offering a slight decrease in your launch price, you'll begin capturing those first initial sales needed to help you hit your keyword ranking goals. Then once you hit your goals, you can begin increasing your price and focusing on maximizing your profit. I highly recommend using the Jungle Scout Profit Calculator to help you strategize your launch price. To do this, open the Chrome extension and click on the net column. From here, enter in your total landed cost, which includes manufacturing, shipping, and anything else per unit. Then adjust the selling price until you find either your break-even number or a number that allows you to make a small profit. Now, to help you get those first initial sales, there's 2 best strategies that we recommend trying out. Strategy 1 is to promote your product through the use of coupons. And strategy 2 is to use Amazon's advertising platform to further accelerate your sales. So an alternative way of lowering your price is offering a discount inside of Amazon. You can find this option inside of Seller Central under coupons. Offering coupons is a great way to draw more eyes to your product as they appear in bright green in the search results, and they're very hard to miss. However, the question many sellers wonder at this stage is it better to just lower your price or to keep a higher price and then offer a coupon? Now, with this question, we've seen different results, so it's a good idea to just test out both of these strategies and see what works best for you. Another common question we hear a lot is, how long should I be using this lower price point for? The best thing you can do is to monitor your sales on a day-to-day basis. Once you're getting enough organic sales to become profitable, you can start to incrementally inch up your price. Typically, once you're getting around 10 to 15 organic sales a day, you can start doing this. Now, the other main strategy that we recommend for getting initial sales is using Amazon PPC ads. Because this is a much bigger topic than using coupons, I'm actually going to cover this in more detail in the last section of this video. But there are some other options as well that you should know to help get those first initial sales. First, you can ask your friends or family to purchase your product. This is an obvious one, but it's still worth bringing up, especially if your network runs deep. Another way is to create Facebook and Instagram pages for your product. Then ask your family and friends to follow the account. Next, try reaching out and asking social media micro-influencers to promote your product. Typically, the way this works is you offer a small to medium-sized influencer a free product, and in exchange, they'll showcase it to thousands of their followers on social media. Lastly, consider driving paid traffic to your product using Google, Facebook, or Instagram ads. All right, now if you ask me, launching your product is by far the most exciting part of this entire process. So here are a few important takeaways to remember. First, keep in mind the 3 factors that affect your product's search ranking. These are consistently being in stock, product relevance, and customer success metrics. Second, to improve your conversion rate, you'll need to have a competitive price point and a good amount of reviews. More on that in the next section. Also, when pricing your product, use the profit calculator tool to help determine your initial launch price. Now, to get your first sales, consider offering steep discounts by using coupons and then running Amazon PPC campaigns. Lastly, consider setting up additional marketing campaigns such as Facebook or Instagram ads to help drive even more traffic to your listing. Okay, now after all the excitement of launching your product, it's time to come back to earth and focus on the next important step. Reviews are one of the biggest drivers in customer sales since over 90% of shoppers read reviews and then use them to make a purchase decision. So, how do you get reviews? Well, there's 2 main ways that I'm about to share with you. The first is the Request a Review button, and the second is the Amazon Bind program. Also, without doing anything to bump up the number of reviews that you can get, the average rate of review is about 1%. In other words, on average, 1% of your customers will actually leave you a review. But there is one way you can improve your rate of review, and if you do it right, you might be able to get this number up to about 4%. So the best way to get more reviews and to increase your rate of review is to simply request a review from your customers. A ton of sellers aren't aware, but this is actually a feature already inside of Amazon's order detail screen. Once here, you can ask Amazon to send your customers a review request email for any purchase within the last 30 days. And while customers often opt out of receiving emails from sellers, this is one that they don't typically opt out of. However, clicking through it the way Amazon designed can be an incredibly time-consuming task. That's why we created an easy way for Jungle Scout users to automatically send out these review requests every 24 hours, without any effort on your end. Let me show you how this all works. To access this feature, click on Marketing, then Review Automation. And as long as your account is synced to Seller Central, this process is extremely easy. All you have to do is toggle this switch to the on position, and the rest is history. Just set it and forget it, because Jungle Scout will now automatically send out review request emails to each of your eligible orders every 24 hours. Another way to get more reviews early on is to enroll your product in the Amazon Bind program. This has been available for a number of years on Amazon. However, you must be a brand registered seller to use this program. You'll see it under advertising and then by clicking Bind. Essentially, how this works is you give out products to pre-vetted Vine reviewers who are people that Amazon thinks leave great reviews. They can request your product, and once they receive it, they will leave a review, which is usually quite thorough. In the past, this program was free to use, other than the fact that you had to send products away for free to just a few reviewers. However, since October of 2021, Amazon has since recently added a cost to take advantage of this program. Right now, that cost is about $200 for each newly enrolled product, which Amazon says is to ensure the long-term sustainability of the program. Even with this price, I still think this is a great strategy to help get those first product reviews and worth the cost to incorporate into your launch strategy. Getting product reviews early on is a vital part of launching your product, but it's not just about growing the number of reviews you get, but growing your review percentage. To help increase both of these, I strongly recommend enabling the review automation tool inside of Jungle Scout to automatically send out review requests for you. It's as easy as set it and forget it, because now for as long as you sell your product on Amazon, a request to review your product will automatically be sent to every order you receive. This will save you countless hours doing this manually inside Seller Central, and the best part is, this feature is 100% Amazon compliant. Which brings me to a good point. You will get caught if you break their terms of service, so it's not worth breaking the rules. Lastly, consider enrolling your product in the Amazon Buy-in program to invite the most trusted reviewers on Amazon to leave a review in exchange for a free product. In my experience when launching your product, these are the two best ways to increase the amount of reviews you get, as well as your review percentage. All right, I briefly mentioned advertising earlier and how it can be a bit of a science to master, but it's not exactly rocket science. As long as you take the time to learn all the ins and outs, you'll see just how important it is to your success. There's a lot to cover on this topic, so I'm just going to be running you through the basics. But when you're ready to learn more, we have an entire masterclass on this topic, and you can find it with the link down in the description. Okay, for starters, PPC stands for pay per click, which is a model of internet marketing where you pay when a shopper clicks on an ad that goes to your listing. As I mentioned during the product launch, PPC will help get you those additional sales, and it's great for helping you gain rank on keywords because you can target specific keywords, and then all those sales you get on that keyword will help improve your ranking. Now, there are 3 types of PPC campaigns on Amazon, but in this video, I'm going to focus on the one that's most common and the one that we found to be the most effective. These are called sponsored product ads. These are the ads that appear on the top and bottom of the search results page, as well as in the product carousel within listings. As with all types of PPC, you're only charged when someone clicks on your ad, not when your ad is displayed. There are 2 types of sponsored product campaigns. These are automatic and manual campaigns. Automatic campaigns are the easiest to set up and therefore a great place to start. In this campaign type, you're allowing Amazon to bid on keywords for you. Essentially, Amazon will choose which keywords to bid on based off of your listing's title, bullet points, description, and backend keywords. This is another reason why it's important to do proper keyword research and have your listing fully optimized. On the other hand, manual campaigns take a little bit more work setting up because in this campaign type, you have to select the keywords you want to target. However, this of course gives you more control over your advertising and the ability to fine-tune your bidding strategy. Let me show you how to set up an automatic campaign, which is a great place to start when you're first launching your product. To begin this process, from Seller Central, click on Advertising, then Campaign Manager. Next, click on Create a Campaign. Start by giving your campaign a name. For now, we'll just call this Automatic Targeting. Under Portfolio, select your product or create a new portfolio and name it with your product. Here, you can set an end date if you want, but I typically leave these running without an end date. Next, you'll set your daily budget. If you have the money, I'd recommend about $50 or so. Otherwise, start at $20 or $30 per day. But just keep in mind that your budget may not last the entire day. Here, this is where you select automatic targeting. Next, this is where you pick your campaign bidding strategy. For automatic campaigns, I recommend dynamic bids up and down. A fixed bid refers to the exact amount that you want to pay for each bid, and this will never go higher or lower than what you set it to. In contrast, dynamic bids up and down means that Amazon will adjust your bid higher if they think you have a good chance of getting a sale, or they'll adjust it down if they think you have a poor chance of getting a sale. Dynamic bids down only just means that they'll only adjust it down and not up. Now, let's create an ad group. For this, we'll just name it Automatic. Here, you'll select the product you want to advertise. Now, select your default bid. Remember, this is the maximum amount you'd be willing to bid, not necessarily the entire amount that you will spend. You can also utilize Amazon's suggested bid amount, but if you have the budget, I'd recommend going with a bid slightly higher than the suggested bid. The last section here is to set up negative keyword targeting. This is an optional step where you pick any keywords that you don't want to bid on. For example, if you're advertising drinking glasses, you might want to make sure that you don't show up for sunglasses. Otherwise, you can just leave this section blank. Now, click Launch Campaign and you're all set. Now, creating a manual campaign is a very similar process. However, you will instead be entering your own keywords. For this, I recommend copying over the same keywords you found earlier when doing keyword research. Now, if you'd like to see firsthand how we use campaigns to launch our latest product in the $1 Million Case Study, make sure you check out this video up in the cards. To recap this section, here's what you need to know about using advertising to launch your product. First, create an automatic campaign for each of your ASINs. This will help you collect new keyword ideas and figure out which keywords perform the best for your particular product. Once you've identified those keywords with the most sales and profitability, you'll then create a list and set up a manual campaign so that you can have greater control over those bids on the most successful keywords. By using both an automatic and manual campaign together, this is a surefire way to get more sales and increase your rankings. In the future, you can always experiment with adding new campaigns such as competitor targeting and sponsored brand campaigns. So if you're interested in learning more about those different campaign types, make sure to check out these videos up in the cards on how to create them.
So there you have it. That covers the steps of finding a product all the way to launching it on Amazon. I hope this video has given you a solid understanding of what it takes from A to Z. Now, we've packed as much information as we could into this one video, but of course there's always going to be a lot more smaller details to cover. If you're interested in taking it another step further and you benefit from having more personal guidance throughout the process, I'd encourage you to check out our full course on the topic called Freedom Builder Bootcamp. Keep in mind that this video is 1 hour of training, whereas the full course is over 20 hours long, going in depth, step by step into the topics that we covered today and led by 8-figure Amazon seller and CEO of Jungle Scout, Greg Mercer. So if that is something that you feel would help you out, then go to freedombuilderbootcamp.com to learn more. But my hope is that this video has given you enough direction to at least get started. Remember to bookmark this video and then visit the description below for more detailed timestamps of each section so that you can easily come back to this as a resource. Now over to you guys. What questions do you have? Leave them in the comment section below and we'll do our very best to answer as many of them as we can. Also, if you've gotten a lot of value from this video, which I hope you did, could you please hit the thumbs up down below? Our team has put a lot of work into creating what we hope is a really valuable resource, so that would mean a lot. Also consider subscribing if you'd like more high quality content like this on how to sell on Amazon. You can even hit the little bell icon as well so that you get notified whenever we post a new video or go live, which we do regularly. Thank you so much for watching today. All the best with your Amazon journey, and we'll see you in the next video. Ooh, what do you call monkeys that share an Amazon account? Primates.
If it's gonna be hard to cut, it's gonna be hard for your teeth to cut.
Yeah.
And strategy 2 is to use Amazon's algorithm.
I would absolutely love it if you hit that like button.
Once you've created your listing, you only need the FN between the FNs.
Remember to bookmark this video. Okay.